My family flew to the Bahamas, without me, on purpose. One post and everything became clear. I was just a wallet. That day I blocked everyone. But 3 days later, there was a knock at the door. And it was not the end. It was the beginning of the W*R. Let me ask you something. What would you do if your entire family, your mom, dad, siblings, cousins, boarded a flight to the Bahamas for a luxury vacation and didn't tell you? No heads up. No fake excuse. No "we'll miss you." Just a photo on Instagram. I was standing in line at a burrito place, halfway through deciding if I wanted guac, when I opened the app and saw it, my brother Frank, grinning on a beach, drink in hand, surrounded by people who looked exactly like my blood relatives. Because they were. The caption read, "Well-deserved family retreat." I stared at it for a full minute. Just processing. Was it an old pic? Some kind of flashback post? No. It was posted 3 hours ago. My phone buzzed. A new text from Dad. "You weren't invited because we didn't want you there." 11 words. 11 bullets straight to the chest. I read it once. Again. Then again. It didn't change. It wasn't a mistake. He meant every word. I didn't cry. Not at first. My body just went cold. I left the burrito line, sat in my car, and let the silence devour me. I pulled up the family group chat. Ghost town. My last message was 2 weeks ago. "Hey Dad, don't forget to refill your meds. I set the alarm for you." No reply. It hit me like slow poison. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't miscommunication. They deliberately left me behind. I called him. He answered with his usual cheerful "Hey kid." Like he hadn't just gutted me. "Where are you all?" I asked, knowing the answer. Pause. "We're on vacation," he finally said. "Without me," I said. Another pause. "We figured you wouldn't be interested. You assumed I wouldn't want to go on a family trip that you planned for months?" "We didn't think you'd care," he said. "You're always busy. You bring the energy down." He said it like he was telling me the weather. Like I was the extra chair no one needed. Something cracked in me, not rage. Not yet. Just a pure, quiet recognition. I didn't belong to them anymore. Maybe I never had. And that's when I remembered. $2,500. Every month. That's what I sent them. Bills. Debts. Emergencies. I funded the same people who didn't even consider me worth a beach towel on their vacation. I opened my banking app and canceled the auto transfer. Then I checked the shared emergency fund account. Nearly empty. I drained the scraps and locked them out. Then I did something radical. I blocked them. All of them. Dad. Mom. Frank. My sisters. One by one. Tap. Block. Done. And for a brief moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, relief. Like I was breathing after holding it in for a lifetime. But peace doesn't last long when you remove the money. The next morning, my phone buzzed like it had been possessed. Texts. Calls. DMs, old friends. Relatives. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone suddenly very interested in how I was doing. Messages like, "Your mom is crying. What's going on? Wait, you cut them off? Seriously? You're being unbelievably selfish." And then, the one that made my skin go cold. "You really think you can just walk away from us after everything we've done for you? You're pathetic. Hope you enjoy being alone." No signature. Didn't need one. It was my father. But here's the thing, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was done. And if they thought I was going to quietly disappear? They were about to learn what happens when the family scapegoat decides to play offense. The silence didn't last. By day 3, the calls had turned into threats. Aunt Carol messaged me 3 times in 1 hour, her last message reading, "Your mother's blood pressure's acting up. She says she can't sleep. Are you happy now?" Was I? I didn't know. I was somewhere between numb and vindicated, like I was finally watching karma work after years of waiting. But then came the knock. Friday night, 9:42 p.m. I live on the 5th floor. Gated entry. Nobody just shows up here. I peeked through the peephole. Frank. I hadn't seen him in months. He looked like hell. Sunburnt, ice puffy, one of those stupid resort shirts half unbuttoned like he forgot what month it was. Or what he'd done. "Open the door, man. We need to talk." I didn't. He stood there, sighing dramatically, like he was the victim in all this. "Look," he said, lowering his voice, "I know what Dad said was messed up. But don't punish all of us. You went nuclear, Sam. That hit a nerve." "Going nuclear," I said through the door. Would have been showing up to your trip and setting the hotel room on fire. Jesus, he muttered. You're serious about cutting everyone off? I opened the door an inch, just enough for him to see my face. Calm, colder than he'd ever seen it. Frank, I said, you posted a picture captioned family retreat with everyone but me in it. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. Just gave me this look like I was the one being overdramatic. You've always taken things too personally, he said. Honestly, it was supposed to be a break from drama. You can be heavy. Heavy. I almost laughed. He meant inconvenient. Too serious. Too not fake. Too unwilling to smile through their backhanded digs and just kidding comments. I closed the door. And I locked it. The next day, my landlord called. Turns out someone had anonymously reported me for illegal subletting. Completely false. That same afternoon, I got flagged for a fraudulent tax filing. My refund suddenly went under review. These were not coincidences. This was war. So I escalated. I dug up the family secrets, quietly, surgically. Things I'd helped bury. Tax dodges. Business write-offs that didn't exist. My father's consulting firm that was nothing more than a P.O. box and a debit card he used to cover personal expenses. I compiled receipts, screenshots, emails, flagged accounts. I didn't leak it. Not yet. I wanted them to know I could. I created a private folder. Titled it, You Shouldn't Have Pushed Me. Then I sent one link. To my mother. Within minutes, my phone rang. Not her. Dad. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, he growled, but you better cut this crap out before someone gets hurt. He always used to raise his voice to control a room. But this wasn't volume. It was fear. Someone did get hurt, I replied, when you decided I wasn't worth a goddamn airplane seat. Click. He hung up. But this time, I felt something. Not fear. Not rage. Something darker. Something cleaner. Control. They had built a dynasty of manipulation. Smiles in public, knives in private. And now they were learning what it meant to lose the son who fixed things. Because here's the truth they never wanted to admit. I was the glue. I was the backbone. I was the ATM, the therapist, the fixer of every fire they couldn't put out on their own. And I had walked away. Worse than that, I'd walked away with receipts. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because the next knock at my door wasn't from my family. It was from someone I didn't expect. And they had a secret. One that made everything that happened look like child's play. The knock came at 11:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd been up all night, half working, half spiraling, when it landed like a gavel on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't expecting anything but maybe another petty revenge attempt from my parents. But it wasn't petty. And it wasn't my parents. It was Kelly. My brother Jacob's wife. She stood in the hallway looking like she hadn't slept in days, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back like she hadn't even glanced in a mirror before coming here. She held a crumpled grocery bag in both hands, clutching it like it might explode. Sam, she said quietly. I need to talk to you. Please. I hesitated. Kelly and I were civil. Never close. Never enemies. Just orbiting planets in the same dysfunctional solar system. Still, something about the look on her face hit me sideways. So I stepped back and let her in. She didn't sit. She didn't speak right away. She just stood in the middle of my living room, holding that bag like it was radioactive. What's going on? I asked. She met my eyes. Then dropped the bag on the coffee table. Paper spilled out, bank statements, screen grabs, printed emails, photos. And at the very top, a copy of a wire transfer. From my account. To a name I didn't recognize. Kelly exhaled like she'd been holding it for years. Jacob's been using your money, she said. For more than just his bills. She didn't wait for a reaction. She just started talking. Rapid fire. Turns out, Jacob had been siphoning from the emergency fund, my emergency fund, for over a year. Not just for bills and the kids. He was making transfers behind my back. He even opened a shadow account under my name using old verification data I'd given him when we were setting up Family Access years ago. And he wasn't just hoarding the cash. He was gambling with it. I found out 6 months ago, Kelly said, tears starting to sting her voice. I confronted him. He promised to stop. He didn't. And then when you cut everyone off, he panicked. My throat tightened. That's why the calls started. He told your parents you were losing it. That you were dangerous. That he was trying to protect the family from a breakdown. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Let me guess. He said I threatened to expose everyone. She nodded. Which, you kind of did. Fair. I leaned forward, staring at the pile of documents. Why are you telling me this now? Kelly didn't answer immediately. She walked to the window, arms crossed like she was holding herself together with duct tape. Because I can't be part of it anymore, she said finally. And because you need to know something else. Pause. He's planning to sue you. I blinked. For what? For emotional distress, she said. And defamation. He's already talked to a lawyer. He's saying you've slandered him to the rest of the family and that your mental instability is affecting his children's well-being. I stood there, silent, every part of me screaming. Kelly turned to face me. I brought you everything. Every lie. Every account. He thinks I'm still on his side. But if this goes to court, you'll need this. I nodded slowly. Thank you. And I meant it. She started to cry. I used to think Jacob was just lost, she said, wiping her face. But now? He's sick. And your parents enable him because it's easier than facing the truth. I watched her walk out, the door clicking shut behind her like the last sentence of a brutal chapter. I stood there for a long time, looking at the proof, the betrayal, the rot underneath everything. They hadn't just forgotten me. They were actively trying to erase me. But they forgot the most dangerous thing in a family like mine. The scapegoat is the one who's been watching everything. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because now I had evidence. Now I had firepower. And now I had nothing to lose. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I served mine frozen solid. By the time the sun rose the next day, I'd already sent copies of the documents Kelly brought me to my lawyer. Not just a lawyer, a bulldog, the kind who eats people like Jacob for breakfast and washes it down with their tears. But I didn't stop there. I started making calls. Discreet ones. A friend at the IRS. A former roommate who now works in fraud investigations at our bank. A contact in HR where Jacob consulted part-time. Each one of them owed me a favor. Each one of them came through. Within 48 hours, Jacob's little financial Disneyland had crumbled. Frozen accounts. Inquiries launched. His employer, who had no idea he was gambling with someone else's money, put him on indefinite leave. But the crown jewel? The IRS. Turns out my dad had been helping Jacob move money in and out of that fake consulting firm. Some of those deductions weren't just suspicious, they were criminal. That's when I dropped the hammer. I uploaded a summary of everything, names redacted, but with just enough detail to Reddit. Not to go viral. To document it. To make sure that even if they came at me, the internet had the receipts. And then I waited. 3 days later, I got the call. Blocked number. Raspy voice. My father. You think this is funny? He hissed. You've humiliated us. Destroyed this family. I took a breath. Calm. You did that when you left me out of the picture, I said. I'm just developing the negatives. He didn't respond right away. Then, you're going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But at least I won't be paying for your regret with my bank account. Click. The calls came faster after that. Mom, Frank, aunts, cousins, guilt, pleading, gaslighting. You've always been so difficult, Sam. Your father's not well. Don't let your anger ruin everyone's lives. It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. The family system had always been rigged. They used me like duct tape, reliable, disposable, never meant to be seen. And now that I'd pulled myself off the cracks, the whole thing was splintering. And the fallout wasn't over yet. Because 2 days later, someone showed up at my work. My boss called me into his office, face grim. There's a woman here. Says she's your mother. She's demanding to speak to you. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Tell her I'm in a meeting. He didn't even blink. I already did. She's still in the lobby. I stood, smoothed my shirt. Guess I'll give her a show. When I walked into the lobby, she stood. My mother. Lipstick perfect. Pearl earrings. Rage in her eyes. Samuel, she said like a judge pronouncing a sentence. How could you do this to us? I tilted my head. To you? Your father's having chest pains. Your sisters are being harassed. Do you even care what you've done? I stared at her. Then pulled out my phone and pressed record. She flinched. This is harassment, I said quietly. If you don't leave this building in the next 30 seconds, I'll file a restraining order. Her eyes darted around. People were watching. Listening. She straightened her shoulders. You'll regret this, Sam. I already did, I replied. For 30 years. She left. I walked back to my desk. And that's when I knew. I was free. But it wasn't over. Because there was one person left. Someone I hadn't confronted yet. Someone I hadn't even wanted to face. Until now. You know what nobody tells you about walking away from family? It's not clean. It's not dramatic like in the movies, with you standing tall and fiery while the house burns down behind you. It's quieter. Like waking up in an empty apartment and realizing the silence isn't peaceful, it's absolute. And you made it that way. I thought I was done. I thought I'd played my final card, dropped the truth like a guillotine, and walked off into whatever freedom looked like after 30 years of playing scapegoat to a family of manipulators. But there was one thread left dangling. Mia. The youngest. The softest. She wasn't like the others. Not exactly. She didn't attack me. But she didn't defend me either. And when they boarded that plane to the Bahamas without telling me, when they smiled for the camera like they hadn't surgically removed their eldest son from the frame, she smiled too. That betrayal had its own weight. A silent kind of knife. But silence cuts just as deep. So when I finally dialed her number, I didn't know what I wanted to say. Closure? Answers? Or maybe just to see if any part of my old life still had a pulse. She answered on the first ring. Sam? Her voice cracked. It sounded like she'd been waiting. Maybe even hoping. I just need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to be honest. Okay. When did you know? Long pause. A breath that came out shaky. Since before the Bahamas, she whispered. Dad told me not to say anything. Said you'd just make things dramatic. I didn't agree with it, Sam, but I didn't stop it either. I didn't do anything. She was crying. I waited. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Because everything's falling apart, she said. Jacob's a mess. Mom's been lying to her friends, telling them you ran off with a cult or something. Dad's sick. Not physically, just poisoned. With pride. And guilt. Not that he'd ever admit it. I didn't say anything. I know what they did, she continued. What we did. And it wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. I see it now. I wish I had sooner. Then why are you still there? I'm not, she said. Not for long. I got a job offer upstate. Real job. Not a favor. I'm moving out next week. I packed my stuff yesterday. I let that settle. Good, I said quietly. It's not easy. But you'll breathe better once you're out. She paused. Does that mean we're okay? That question. 3 words that carried 30 years of weight. I thought about the scraped knees and the whispered apologies. The cupcakes she used to sneak into my backpack on birthdays everyone else forgot. I thought about her silence on the group chat. Her smile in that vacation photo. We're not okay yet, I said. But we're getting there. A few days later, she sent me a photo. A small apartment. Cardboard boxes stacked like monuments to new beginnings. A handwritten sign taped to the wall. No scapegoats. No saints. Just survivors. I saved it. Months passed. And for the first time in my life, peace started to feel real. I slept without grinding my teeth. Ate without checking my bank balance every hour. Spent Sundays reading instead of crisis managing everyone else's chaos. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped needing permission. Then, something unexpected happened. A journalist messaged me, found me through the Reddit post that had quietly gone semi-viral. Your story, he said. It's not just yours. So many people are living versions of this. You ever think about writing the whole thing out? I hadn't. Not seriously. But the idea lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. So I did. Nights. Weekends. Poured every scar into pages. Wrote until my fingers cramped and my chest felt hollow. Every lie. Every gaslight. Every betrayal. Every time I swallowed rage because I was told I was being too sensitive. And when it was done, I didn't submit it anywhere. I printed it. Bound it. Mailed it to my parents' house with no return address. No note. Just a title on the cover. Here's the son you left behind. Weeks later, I got an email. Blocked address. No name. Just one sentence. We read it. I didn't reply. Because I didn't need to anymore. They were watching me now. Not controlling me. Not using me. Just watching. From afar. Like the strangers they chose to become. A year after the Bahamas, I stood on a small stage at a bookstore in a new city. Mia sat in the front row, smiling. Beside her, 2 people I barely knew, friends I'd met after cutting loose everything old and poisonous. I was reading the final lines of my book. And I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. When the applause came, it wasn't thunderous. But it was real. And this time? They stood up for me.